evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the Lochknits knitting podcast. My name is Haley. I am coming to you from the floor, but also from Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania in the Northeast PA part of the United States. This is a knitting, crafting, spinning, fiber, sewing podcast, and we'll definitely get into that today. And today is Valentine's Day, so I think I'm probably gonna get this uploaded Valentine's Day evening, but in the event I don't, I hope everyone had a wonderful time. If you celebrate that, if that's your jam, it's absolutely mine. I think this is like one of the best holidays all year round. I thought it would be a good idea to film a stash video. I've had a lot of people ask for, which I thought at first was surprising, and I remember talking to Nate about this and saying like, who wants to look at my yarn stash? And I guess a lot of you guys do, and I don't blame you. I like haul videos and acquisition videos, and I love looking at that stuff, so I guess it makes sense. And today we're gonna organize my stash, and by now you're probably looking behind me saying like, Haley, that's not a stash. How are you going to make a video out of that? Well, this is one of 3 places that I store yarn on the lower level of my home. So I actually have a lot more than what you're seeing right here. I too have my shame, I feel like, as a lot of us do. As we are navigating this video together, I don't think people actually care. I think this is just something that like craft podcast people say, but like what's a lot of stash to me is maybe not a lot of stash to you. What is shameful to me is like maybe not shameful to you. And you shouldn't care about what people on the internet say, nor should you allow people on the internet to influence your decisions. Just keep that in mind. I'm gonna use words like shame, regret, things like that. So just don't let that get you upset now or ever. So I think with all of my prefacing done, I'll tell you what I'm wearing. This is the Love Note sweater by Tin Can Knits. I thought this was totally appropriate for today's Valentine's Day theme. I love this sweater. This is by far like my most worn sweater that I have. I'm wearing it with just like a linen dress that I'm sure you'll see at some point in the video today, but it was once a very pale pink color, and then Sock and I dyed them together. We did some over dyeing in her kitchen, which was really fun. And now it's even more wearable than it was before. The links to everything, including like what I talk about, links to my socials and all that stuff, is in the description box. You can find it there if you should so choose. I'm really not looking forward to doing this video. I think I should just put that out there. This is one for all you guys out there who clearly are invested in like the stash organization process, and I honestly probably would have put this off for a much longer amount of time, but the resounding call from online is show me your stash. So we've got section number 1 over here, and I'm gonna just kind of explain like what my thought process is as I'm organizing these points around my house today. So we are sitting right now in front of, I would say like this is where I mainly store my yarn. This is a bookshelf. The window that's right here, the sun comes through this window, and so the yarn is not directly in the sun at any point when it is here. So you can see I have this block full here. I have one block that's like kind of empty. There's some mini skeins in there, and then also like one of my nitty naughties. This is like my ideal spot to store yarn. I feel like when it comes to how I choose to store like my stash, I feel very inspired by being able to see what I have available to pick or choose from, or think about my next project. And I'll definitely go through usually like once every two or 3 months and just kind of like reorganize this, flip the skeins around so that I'm seeing a different side of the skeins. My stash, like for me, is something visual that I want to be able to look at and to see and everything. So it's about time for me to do that anyway with this like chunk of yarn. However, there's more yarn. I have 3 sections in my home right now that are holding yarn. So I have this right here, which I would consider like my main stash. I have the bookshelf that I normally podcast in front of. So if you guys have watched previous episodes where like my little pumpkin lamp is and my ball winder and everything, that is the second bookshelf, kind of sits against that like more plain wall of my house that I podcast in front of. And I usually like to have a little basket behind me full of yarn, just stuff that I like, stuff in my stash that I think is like pretty, that I want to, you know, keep in the background and everything. Unfortunately, that bookshelf is against a wall that gets a lot of direct sunlight every day. And what I don't want to happen kind of in the long term, obviously this is not something that's going to happen today, tomorrow, or next week, but I really don't want the sun exposure to impact any of the yarn if I don't flip it around enough, if it's, you know, in my stash longer than I think it's going to be. So that's something that's kind of been like on my mind since, you know, I moved into this space, and I'm just trying to like get everything laid out to where I want it to be. You'll see on the second bookshelf that I'm talking about that I do have storage bins there. It's a 9-cube shelf. All 9 cubes are like my space to use, and I've since bought some storage bins for that, so that the things that are in that bookshelf or that cube shelf are kind of protected from that direct sunlight. There's still objects on top of it that I need to like take care of and dismantle. That basket that's full of yarn that I like to show off, like we're basically just gonna pull everything from there over here and kind of organize. And then the third bookshelf is actually new to me. I wouldn't even call it like a bookshelf. I'm saying bookshelf. It's a shelf, you know, with like the little bins in it and stuff. Nate actually just got me this third shelf unit that is kind of anchored to where I sew. So it's very like low to the ground. It's actually lower than our couch, and it's very long, and it has some drawers in there as well. So what my vision is for all of this today is to pull all of my yarn, get all of my skeins of yarn on the floor, really like kind of do a spread of everything, see what I'm working with, see how I want to organize the yarn here in a way that is effective to, you know, keep it tucked away, but also to be able to see it and feel kind of continuously inspired by it. And then I also have fiber. I do have a spinning wheel. I do have like my phases of spinning and everything, and since I moved into this space I really haven't had as much of a spinning phase because my fiber has been kind of over there and kind of upstairs in my closet. So I do have a lot of like fiber shame that we're going to examine today and like really pick apart. I think what I have in mind right now, again, before I like do any of this or really get into it, is that the bookshelf with the storage bins in it, the second bookshelf, bookshelf number 2, I think I'm going to really try to tuck all of my fiber and fiber braids in there. Something that I do want to consider is that when it comes to fiber braids, unfortunately, like the cats are much more likely to like start gnawing on them. I don't have any issue, like right now, this has been like this since I've moved in here. No issue with Arlo or Tater trying to get into that. Tater has been like long since trained to like not even bother with my yarn. Arlo obviously is like new to being in a house full of yarn, and she's done really well with it so far. So I think that is fortunate, and I feel confident now that I'll be able to store my yarn here. But the fiber, I am just not so sure of. I know there's some kind of like primal thing that makes them want to like take a bite out of like my wool and stuff, and I don't want that to even be an issue. So second bookshelf, what I would like to for sure do is tuck away all of my fiber so that it's all down here, it's all on one floor and I can access it. But I do spin a lot less than I knit or crochet with like this yarn over here. And then the other thing that I have to tackle as it relates to the third shelf, and the third shelf is, I would say, exclusively sewing fiber content. There's not any spinning fiber, there's no yarn in there now. I don't anticipate having a need to like move any yarn or spinning fiber into that third shelf. I'd really like to keep it dedicated for sewing. I really need, sorry this is so like long-winded, but this is just like me making my plan here, is that this shelf and this space should be primarily dedicated to yarn for knitting and crochet. The second shelf, there's certainly probably going to be room for a little bit of that, but I would like to keep it mostly dedicated to spinning fiber. I have braids and bats, things like that. And then the third shelf, I'd really like to get all of my sewing scraps and things like that put into that. This is sounding a lot worse the more I'm talking about it. I feel worse off than when I started. So I think what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to shut the camera off. I'm going to bring over all of my various forms of shame here, and I am going to do like a flat lay on the ground here, and we're gonna take a look at everything I have. I really don't have any need to like discuss it in detail. I'm not like showing off the yarn that I have in a way that I'm gonna like go through and talk about it, but we'll lay it flat here. We'll see what I'm working with, and then maybe getting a visual of it will help me decipher how more specifically it's going to be organized in my respective bins. So with the power of movie magic, I will be right back. This is everything right now. This is a little worse than I thought it was gonna be, which is fine. A lot of this yarn is obviously of my own doing, things that I myself have purchased, but I will say there's a few things in here that are like multiple years old. And I was hoping today to be able to easily identify some of this that maybe I don't want anymore. I don't know, I don't think that's gonna take the form of a destash like I originally talked about on the last video, but like one thing that comes to mind is this. This bin right here is actually all cotton cones, little scraps of cotton, and I just don't typically use that on, you know, a regular basis such that I would like want to keep it in my stash. I think that these are all really small. Maybe I'll keep like one, I think there's 1 or 2 full skeins in there, and maybe I'll hold on to those, but I think for the most part, I'm going to try to wrap all this up in a way that is able to be donated, and see if there's anything else in here that perhaps I want to like pass along to a friend, or we'll see. So the goal is to get this in there. I don't know how that's gonna go. We'll see. This is an adventure. It's an adventure that we're all on together. I'm gonna start by just kind of separating things into piles. One of the things that I try to keep in mind as I am organizing my stash today, or you know, anytime, is thinking about colors that work together or fiber types. I usually like to organize like one side by fingering weight, one side by everything else. I do buy a lot. I would say like the majority of this is fingering weight or lace weight, like Surrey alpaca, mohair, stuff like that. So I'll probably try to keep that in one bin, and then I'll see what else is left. Maybe I can put it in the second bin to like kind of keep it separated, but I'm going to make some adjustments so that I can sit in front of here, and we will see how this goes. So just right off the bat, one of the things that I immediately noticed is I have a lot of loose mini skeins. Mini skeins, for me, don't always store that well, in the sense that they kind of like float behind the shelves. They'll get knocked down, they get stuck under things. I don't think that putting the mini skeins in here is necessarily like a great idea. So I am going to give myself a pass, and I'm going to find another storage apparatus, I guess, for all my mini skeins that are loose. And you'll see, oh, it's right here. I have an advent calendar of mini skeins that I showed on the last episode of the podcast that Brienne gave me. I'm gonna put them off to the side and see if I can store all the mini skeins together, maybe in like a little basket or something, but I don't think I want to store them here in these bins. So I'm gonna put those to the side, and they'll kind of be not counted as things that have to fit in here. Okay, you may have just seen me just now in this moment tuck a small cake of mohair. So it's mohair that I've caked up. I've used some of it, but there is still a good portion of it left. You may have seen me tuck it in here. You want to talk about actual shame. So that bucket we are not going to deal with today. That is like peak shame for me. That's all of my half-used cakes things that I've caked up and used like 90% of. It's all my like little tiny nuggets of yarn and everything. Mohair especially, I don't even mess with trying to put that on the shelf. I do go through scrappy projects. This is actually one of the only times that I haven't had sort of an ongoing like blanket or scrappy project kind of in the works where I'm constantly in and out of that bin. And I have had it organized in the past, and sometimes it stays organized for 3 months, sometimes it stays organized for a year. Right now it is in total disarray. The big focus for me today was getting this as yarn, the other as fiber, and the other as sewing. So I'm not gonna dive into that today, but I did just want to give that context because I have a few like smaller cakes that were kicking around in the shelf, and it just for me like throws off the ability to like lay them flat and really keep like the hanks in good like flat storage where nothing is sort of like precariously perched in the shelf. It's just, I guess, like a little explanation, but maybe I'll do another video of my like scrap bin because that's an entirely different monster. Okay, so I just finished a sort of first go of yarn organization, and there's some good stuff happening here. First of all, that took me like 10 minutes. I would have sped it up so you guys like don't get the full effect of how long that took, but it like really was no time at all. So not too shabby there. The other thing that's crazy to me is that I was able to actually split this up between fingering weight and then also everything else. So anything from like sport weight to bulky, whatever's in there. And I am very surprised by what an even split this is. And I feel like that's something important to consider as I'm thinking about like making things or trying to like whittle down my stash. I guess I just like think of myself as someone who primarily buys like fingering weight yarn, and I guess that's not the case. Pretty crazy. So maybe I have to look into some DK weight patterns. Definitely have like some skeins of worsted in there. This yarn down here is for a project that I bought the yarn specifically for, and then I have red yarn over here that I've bought specifically for a project. But other than that, everything here is, there's hand spun in here, there's one-off skeins, there's stuff that, you know, my friends have given me for whatever reason. So I don't typically like buy for a project. I really hate trying to like shoehorn my gauge into someone else's numbers, you know what I mean? Like, this is just how I tend to buy yarn, and I'm okay with this. Honestly, like, I don't think the shame factor is necessarily there. I think that I just needed maybe to get it organized and get some perspective, because this seems like manageable. I never like thinking about having more yarn than like I will be alive on this planet to use it, if that makes any sense. And again, I know everybody's different. Don't get like anything in a twist about it, but this for me is like totally doable. I have a few problem children down here. I'll just like show you right now. I'll pull them up and do like a little show and tell of things that I'm going to end up like shoving in here that don't fit the like the hank situation that I have going on. First of all, mohair. I have so much mohair in like these little cakes. I bought this Barocco Ariel. I don't even know like what I ended up using that for. And then Gail gave me 3 skeins of this gorgeous Sugar Bush Drizzle. These ones and the Barocco Ariel, which I'm a huge fan of, are in these like smushy balls, like somewhere between a skein and a ball. And I am now going to shove these in here in a way that is not like beautiful or whatever. And then I also have, this is my one holdout of Lily Sugar and Cream Cotton yarn. I actually really like this color. I might make a big doily out of this or something, maybe for like the Moon and Yarn craft room. I don't know. I've been way more drawn to like lacework doilies lately than like actual dishcloth knitting. And that's something that's kind of the reason I have a lot of the dishcloth like cotton yarn, is because at one point in my life when I was a better woman, I used to knit dishcloths all year round and then like give them to friends and family for Christmas gifts and stuff like that. And I just don't anymore. I actually have this bin, I think, is full of just already made dishcloths that I have to like dish out to the universe, pun intended. And it's just like not something that I'll do in my spare time. Like nowadays I tend to make more like sock tubes for myself and things like that. I've become like way more of a selfish knitter, crafter, maker in the last couple of years, which is good. And I think that cotton yarn that I showed you at the beginning of the video is going to be better suited to like a really nice grab bag that I can donate for someone who's in that phase of their journey, which is great. But I will keep this, the color's great. And then my last one is actually some yarn from a finished object that I have that I will show you in the next episode. I didn't want this to be like a million years long or anything, so I didn't even want to get into it. But I knit a garment out of this Lion brand Re-Up. And I have my own thoughts about this. This is recycled cotton and polyester, and I will give like a full finished object sort of review on the next episode as I talk about it. I have this, and because of the construction of that garment, I actually had 3 cones of this, and now I have this. So these are another thing that like this is not gonna store beautifully, and that's okay. I don't have enough cones to actually store this somewhere else like with other cones so that they could like nest nicely in a shelf or anything. And plot twist, I wasn't like a huge fan of this yarn, which probably is like really obvious to a lot of you guys, but I'm a big fan of cotton. I've never tried the cotton polyester blend of like any brand before, so I was excited to try this. I got this for like a great discount. I think each one of these cones was $8.97, and if this were not black or like this dark kind of like blue gray color, I honestly probably would just donate it. I was like that much not a fan of it, if that makes any sense. I think that this is going to be a really nice like shawl or vest or something for me, like something as an overlayer. And again, I'll talk more about that in the next episode, so more to come with this, but just know that if it were not black, I would give it away. So I'm going to shove these in here. We'll get kind of a little tour of everything, and then we'll move on to the next one. Okay, so this is by no means glamorous, but it is just the reality of the situation. I finished packing these in here. Again, this is my fingering lace weight section. This is my everything else section. The cones really are very ugly. Like these are killing my vibe a little bit, and that's okay. I'm going to try to use them soon-ish, relatively soon-ish. This is it. It's not beautiful. It's for me to be able to take it in and, you know, sort of digest everything that I have at a glance, at a distance, and it'll work for me for now. It was really like bugging me out that everything was just kind of in all these separate locations in my house, and that was the focus. So I'm trying to like keep that in mind, but we're done with this shelf for now. And out of all of the yarn that I had, I actually, other than the cotton, which is, you know, moving on from that phase of my life, the only other yarn that I have to donate is the Valley yarns. This is bulky. I have no idea how this would have, or when this would have come into my stash. I really do not like it. I've actually tried to knit with it a few times. It is 60% merino, 40% acrylic. I can't get like a good read on how this is going to like block out. I refuse to do a gauge swatch for like a hat or something. And I have, like I said, tried to knit with it before, and it's just like the twist is, it's too springy. It's like kind of all over the place for me. So I'm not even gonna bother with that. So that's to the donation pile. I have this skein of hand spun that I made a million years ago when I was like mega bad at spinning. It's cute. It's just like not enough for like anything, so that's gonna go. And then the third one is actually a skein. I'm pretty sure Sock gave me this out of her, I think she ordered from someone and someone gave this to her, but this is also just like not enough to do anything, and Sock obviously like didn't want it or else she wouldn't have given it to me. So this is gonna go as well. This is very cute and it's nice, but it's, I don't know, just doesn't speak to me. So that's that. Overall, like this is done. My last episode was all about like what I got at VKL, and I did a little bit of shopping at the Moon and Yarn Craft Room as well, so this accounts for that, which is great. I'll consider this tackled for now. Maybe check back in like 6 months or something and just kind of see how this is going. I'm going to stop this video now. I'm going to go over to, oh my God, the second bookshelf, it like looks somehow worse, miraculously. I'm gonna go over there. Keep in mind that this is the bookshelf that I podcast in front of, and what I'm about to show you is what it looks like 90% of the time. I literally take things off and put them on the ground while I podcast because it's like totally crazy pants all over the place. So we're gonna pause, we're gonna go over there, and then we're gonna tackle that beast as well. Okay, so here we are at the other bookshelf. When I think of shame, this is what I think of. There's just like stuff stacked on top. There's the nitty naughty I just took from over there is now here. You know, like this is just how it happens. There's ring lights and kind of the tripod setups and everything. Like I don't even know if half that stuff still works, you know? So this is what I gotta deal with, and that's okay. There's a few things that are going to be staying in their designated spot. One of them is going to be the Swift that I have right here. I have the Knit Picks black like wooden Swift. It might not stay in that container specifically. I might like move it off to one side. I'm gonna try to see if I can move my ball winder over to the shelf that we were just at. And then I'm gonna take all of these bins out and I'll just show you kind of what's hanging around in all of them. And we're gonna look at my fiber stash, which is bad. I'm gonna dismantle and then I'll be right back. Here we are. I have a bunch of stuff on the floor. I'm not even gonna hold it up and show you, but the basics of it are this. This bucket right here. This is gonna be a crinkle heavy part of the episode just because like there's nothing I can do about the containers that these are in, and that's okay. All of these are, see, they're spilling out. This is all braids, fiber braids for spinning. There's a few sets of Rolex in there, nothing like too crazy. I found a skein of yarn. This was a little spinning experiment that I did. I actually don't like the way this turned out, so this is also gonna go in the donation bin, and that's just fine. The other thing that I have here is this giant bag. This is also fiber. You know, here's the problem. I love spinning fiber. I love how fluffy it is. I love how pretty it looks. I love art bats, and like the reality is that I could probably work through a lot of this quicker than I would think. You know, as I'm pondering my yarn stash today and thinking about feelings of shame and guilt, one of the things that I find like prohibitive about spinning, and maybe I'm alone or maybe I'm not, one of the things that I find truly prohibitive about spinning is that you are making more yarn and it's like, homegirl, you have plenty of yarn. Look over at the stash, like the yarn is there. And that's really not, that's not a thing. I shouldn't be thinking about that. Like my life does not come down to minimizing the amount of yarn that I have. As long as like I'm comfortable with it, that's fine. I really shouldn't feel any more like guilt about any of this. Like I really shouldn't care. I'm saying that, and I'm not saying it like with my chest, but I'm manifesting those emotions. So this is just like what it is, you know what I mean? There's nothing we can do. I'm not going to keep 100% of everything here. One thing I will say that is very obvious that I'm not going to keep anymore, because this is crazy activity. This is crazy thought process. And I know this now. So I have this big bag. I have this big glass jar that has a bunch of fiber scraps in it. And, you know, in a different world, I would have kept this and spun yarn out of it, but I'm not going to. I'm going to put it all in a bag, and I'm gonna really squish all the air out of it, and I'm gonna tuck it somewhere out of the way, because I know that there are services, I know that there are makers on Etsy who will take your yarn scraps, process them into an art bat or whatever form of spinning material, and send it back to you either as a yarn or as a bat or something. And I don't have like the finances for that right now. It's a very like expensive service that I looked into kind of recently, and I totally get it. Like obviously if this were super easy to turn into yarn, like I would have done it by now. But that being said, there is something about spinning scraps. And I mean, look at all the other scraps that I have in my life. I have a bunch of sewing scraps we're gonna get into right now. I have a bunch of like tiny little mini skeins. I have that whole cube cubby of little scraps that I like, and I love it. Like I love the journey. I love remembering what these projects were and what they were from and everything. So I'm not gonna like hard stop, give up on this, but I am going to put it in a giant plastic bag and, like I said, really compress and squeeze all the air out of it so that I can store it, because I do want that to happen. I do want to have something come of these scraps. I just don't know what it's gonna be yet, but I do love this jar, and I'm gonna see if I can get some mini skeins in here, and this little guy will fit very nicely and very aesthetically in one of these cubes. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna start with that and try to get that like done, wrapped up. And oh, the other thing that I found is this, and I don't know what this is gonna be yet, because this will not fit in here, I don't think. Let me see. Oh my god, okay, love that. That's nice. I'm sure I was just sitting in front of that. So cute basket, love it. Don't know what I'm gonna put in there yet. Maybe I'll try to put some like funky bats in there or something, I don't know. So we have this available for our use. I'm gonna take that jar and empty that, and I'm gonna pull off all of these little bins, and we're gonna go through what's in them and see what kind of space I can get from that. Okay, we got the bins. Let's go through the bins now. I actually totally forgot already, but I actually just bought 3 of these the other day. So 2 of them are empty, which is really exciting, and that's very like promising. What's not so promising is the stuff that is remaining in the bins. I'm not 100% like what to do with yet. So we're gonna have to basically like suspend disbelief that I'm going to make space in the 3rd shelf, because I need to free up these bins. Here's 2 of them are empty, so we're gonna put this over here, and then I'm just gonna, like I said, real quick tell you about what's in each one of them, and you'll probably find out really quickly why I don't know what to do with them. So the first bin that's just laying in front of me are all my 2.5-inch strips. And if you're like, Haley, the first jelly roll that you ever used was 3 months ago, how do you have this many 2.5-inch strips? And I basically used a jelly roll one time and said, I love that. And I saw how many patterns there were out in the universe for 2.5-inch strips, and you know, I'm just a scrappy lady at heart. I can't help myself. So I started cutting my remainder pieces of fabric into 2.5-inch strips, because it is one of my favorite like types of pre-cut to work with. So I have this one full of 2.5-inch strips. This one is full of also like scrap yardage that just wasn't enough to, oh, there's Tater, that just wasn't enough to do anything with. And then another size that I prefer is 4.5-inch squares. So there's a lot of really good stuff in here, a lot of scraps from my project bags and everything that I've sewn in the past. So 4.5-inch squares there. And then my last bin is true scrap. These aren't strings. I wouldn't call them strings if you're like a quilting person. I'm pretty sure like this is a string because it's like a really long piece. And I would call these crumbs. Strings and crumbs probably. So there's a lot of like all over the place kind of stuff. Big prints and things that I liked that were just like the very ends of a project or a piece of fabric. So this one is the most full for sure, because it's just like a catch-all for everything that I think is going to be usable. So I need to put these into some sort of container so that I can hold them over there. And then I'm gonna free up these bins. We're gonna pull off the rest of the stuff on the shelves. Hopefully this will speak to me a little bit more about how this is gonna go. So the good news is these bins hold a lot. These are the 11-inch bins. I got these from Target. The bins that we did in the first part of the video are the 13-inch ones. There's a lot of fabric in here, and obviously it like condenses down well and everything, but the good news is these hold a lot. The bad news is I have a lot now to deal with, and that's just okay. So I ran out of plastic bags. I actually had to employ my Moon and Yarn reusable bag, but now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 empty bins. So if you're thinking to yourself, hey lady, you've got 6 bins. Well, the 6th bin is here. This actually has yarn related tools. I have a knitting notebook. I've got my wool wash in here, sweater shaver, my interchangeable set of needles, my fixed circular needles, pom-pom makers, price tags. I'm over that phase of my life, so those are gone. Blocking pins, buttons, all of my crochet hooks. I think there's a better way to organize those things, but I do appreciate being able to store my tools on a shelf. There's 2 more shelves, or 2 more bins on this shelf, I guess I should say, that I'm gonna have to deal with right now. So first of all, random yarn bowl, or cut pieces of fabric. These are my 2-inch squares, and then these are 3-inch squares, and both of these bins are from making project bags. These are all the corners that I would cut out of the bags to make them like a box bottom flat bag. And I love these for quilting. Like, I love any square size. It's like super easy to work with, and I would not consider getting rid of these. I do want these to be a part of my like sewing stuff that's like it's in front of me on the opposite side of the wall. But right now I want to focus on getting the fiber organized, because the fiber has to go in the bins, because again, I don't want my cats to like make a meal out of it. I do like having them separated by braids and bats, so I'm gonna put the braids in probably 2 of these bins here, because they just don't stack up as nicely. And I'm gonna see how many bats I can get into this container here. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention, these are dies that Nate gave me. They're actually, I don't even know how to describe these. It's Inco dye by Lumi. This is what the bottle looks like. This is dye that you can put on fabric and it will react with the sun. I do want to use these. I don't think this is like an everyday sort of like craft thing that I'm going to keep on my shelf anymore, so I'll probably put these in the kitchen cabinet. Those are going to go as well. And then the last thing is actually this bin here is all yarn. It's for giveaways. So you know what, why don't we just do one of those? I'm gonna keep the use of that word to a minimum, because again, it like attracts bots and stuff. So let's just say we're gonna, you know, to you. I have a lot of yarn here that was gifted to us for the intention of being shared with our audience. I'm gonna pull, let me see, 2 yarns out of here to dish out. Really like these. There's something about these ones that are really speaking to me right now. So this is what we're gonna do. Oh, they're so pretty. So 2 different people will, if you want to, comment down below and just tell me like something about your stash. It can be anything. Like, are you proud of your stash? Are you embarrassed of your stash? Did this inspire you to think about organizing your own stuff? How many bookshelves does your stash take up? Like, just tell me something fun about your stash. I will pick 2 people. I will physically say the names of these people on the next episode. So if you get any like weird links or messages or whatever, like, don't click it. Don't, it's not me. I will verbalize on the next episode someone to get each of these. So 2 different winners here, but these are just so gorgeous. These were donated to us when we were running the Prickly Stitch podcast. Nick was very generous with both of these. This is Goosey Fibers. Ugh, gorgeous. And then this is less traveled yarn. They're both kind of like moody watercolor situations. Very beautiful. So that's fun. I'm going to put these back in the bin, but this bin is going to remain untouched because I actually do need to continue to like pare this bin down. Figured if you guys are sticking around for like this long through this hot mess, the least I could do is do a little giveaway. I'm gonna start putting some fiber in here and we'll see how far I get. Okay, quick update. All of my fiber braids that were in here in this awful bucket fit into one queue, which is really exciting. That's awesome. I pulled 2 bags of fiber that were in there because they were flattened up very nicely. I don't think I've opened them since I bought them to kind of like let the air in. So the bags are laying really flat, and I'm gonna put that with some other bats and things to that bin so it's a little aesthetically pleasing. I do still want to keep like a background for the podcast because again, I podcast like right here in front of the store. So I'm gonna keep it moving with this one. We'll see what happens. We're doing great overall. Like this shelf has been not too bad. That's really awesome. So in here on this side and this side, these 2 bins, I have the bag of bats that I just dismantled. I actually found a couple braids in there, but for the most part they were art bats and then also like very plain fiber. I have about half plain like white cream undyed fiber and then some black fiber as well. And then in that middle portion I was able to put all the braids. I put a little kind of curated bag up here. This is like some cutie pie, like pinks and greens and stuff. We're moving and shaking. This is all good. I actually think I think I took all the fabric scraps out of these bins for no reason because now I have 3 empty bins. So that's fine. Pretty sure I did that for no reason. So I'm going to actually put the fabric back into these bins, and then what's left for me is to figure out what the mini skein situation is up here, and then I also have to keep my tools here, all of my like needles and things like that, and I don't think they're gonna have their own bin, but that's okay. So that's kind of what's next. So I'm gonna do all that and we'll see where that gets us, and I'll be right back. All right guys, so here's the real. I was in the process of continuing to tidy up and everything. My camera battery died. I did not even see that it had died. I need a new camera battery, like really bad. I also need some extra camera batteries because I only have the one. Aside from all that, I got down to the nitty-gritty and I realized that I was making great progress, and this area is a lot tidier. I have like my little jar of mini skeins here. I've got my, you know, cat basket and everything. Like that's looking great. This is totally just fine for what it is. And then I was thinking about my 3rd shelf and I realized like I just do not have the capacity to get rid of any of that. And unfortunately, a lot of what's in that 3rd shelf has nothing to do with sewing. It's all of my packing supplies for Etsy orders. If you guys have been watching, you will know that I am discontinuing my Etsy shop. I have one like shipping issue that I'm trying to resolve right now, and then as soon as that's done, like the Etsy store is finished, and I'm looking forward to being done with that. But unfortunately I still have a lot of stuff. I have all of my mailer bags and my packing tape and labels, and I'll obviously like continue to use those things. I do tend to send a lot of like happy mail regardless, like to my friends and everything, but I have so much of that taking up space that I don't have as much room for like my sewing fabric and everything. And I like very quickly at the tail end of the last footage of me actually like tidying up that you saw, realized that like I have too much stuff. I do not have the right furniture for this setup, and I don't have like a designated craft area or anything. I have like my sewing table that takes up a ton of space, and you know how it is with like knitting and crochet, you just kind of like fill in the gaps, but everything is very it's very disjointed. I don't think that this video was necessarily a fail, but I don't feel much better, I think, than when I started, which is unfortunate. I really wish that I had like just one big shelf to kind of like take over and put all my craft supplies in there. And just like right now at this point in like our living situation, I don't think that that is gonna happen. So I think I just need to start working through some of this, honestly. And the tone of this video like really turned for me just in the last like 30 minutes or so. And so I have all my yarn over here, fiber stuff over here, some sewing stuff here, sewing stuff over there. And I actually just took over like another space kind of deeper into the living room, and I am like not stoked about that. I just feel like not stoked about like how much stuff I have, and yeah, this kind of sucks. Kind of, you know, I guess all I can do is just like continue to work through some of this. And I mean, certainly like I have that whole giveaway bin, like that'll be a bin freed up once I can manage to like work through all that stuff. All of my like Etsy things will clear themselves up, hopefully, you know. At the end of the day, I do think like there is a point where I just have too many materials and too much stuff, and I need to kind of whittle that down as best as I can. So I guess maybe that's like the takeaway from this, is like just keep making and see how it all shakes out. If you are here at this point, like watching this part of the video, thanks for hanging in there. This was like quite an adventure. I felt like I picked up my camera and moved it like all around my house and stuff. So thank you guys for hanging in there. This was maybe it was a long one for me. I don't know how this is all gonna shake out like after I've fast forwarded through everything, but if you are here, again, thank you. I will see you on the next one. Bye.